I stood outside the glass conference room of Silverline Strategies, watching my own presentation wrap up from a distance. My team was still inside, beaming under the fluorescent lights, while Kira Jennings, my manager, gave her usual tight-lipped smile, as if she had orchestrated the entire thing. I wasn't even invited into the final review meeting. It wasn't the first time. For 6 years, I had poured every part of myself into this company, flying across states for client emergencies, missing family birthdays, building trust with CEOs who couldn't even spell strategy until I walked in. And yet, here I was locked out of the moment I had built from the ground up. Kira emerged from the room, finally clipboard in hand, her heels clicking like a warning siren. "Good results," she said without looking at me, "but don't expect fireworks. We're all stretched thin." She was always like this, calm, polished, and vague. That was her armor. Meanwhile, I carried the numbers. We had just renewed the Crestview Global contract again. That account alone brought in a quarter of the firm's annual revenue, and yet my raise request had been declined 3 times this year. I walked back to my desk, trying to shake it off. There was a sticky note on my monitor. "See me, Kira?" Just that. No smiley face, no initials. My heart sank a little. These notes never meant anything good. In her office, she didn't ask me to sit. Instead, she stood by the window, arms folded. "Elena, I know about your meeting with Crestview last week." She said sharply, "You went behind this company's back. That's a breach of loyalty." I blinked. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Yes, I had a private lunch with Liam Carter, Crestview's CEO. But we didn't even talk specifics. Just possibilities. Nothing signed, nothing shared. But it didn't matter. "You're letting me go?" I asked quietly. Her lips curled, like she was doing me a favor. "Effective immediately. You'll be escorted out. HR will follow up." There was no goodbye, no handshake, just a security guard arriving within minutes, watching me pack up the career I had built with the kind of indifference usually reserved for lost luggage. I didn't cry. I didn't fight. But inside, a storm was rising. I had spent 6 years lifting this company up. Kira's numbers were my numbers. My clients. My late nights. And now I was being discarded like I never existed. Outside, I sat in my car for a long time, keys resting in my lap, unsure where to go or who to call. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Liam. "Heard what happened. Call me when you're ready to talk." I stared at the screen. Maybe it wasn't the end. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something far bigger than Silverline could ever offer me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw Kira's expression, flat, dismissive, victorious. She had wanted this. I realized she had waited for a reason to push me out, and I had given her one: ambition. Silverline punished ambition if it didn't come from the top. I lay in the dark, the weight of 6 years pressing on my chest like a stone. All the meetings, the red-eye flights, the quiet weekends in hotel rooms preparing for Monday pitches, gone. But the message from Liam lingered like a spark refusing to die. By morning, I had drafted an email, then deleted it. Finally, I called him. His voice was calm, warm, and for the first time in days, familiar. "I was hoping you'd reach out," he said. "I didn't expect Silverline to act so fast. But I'm not surprised. It's their loss." He paused. "Can we meet today?" We met in a quiet corner of Crestview's downtown office. No pressure, no handlers. Just Liam, a strong coffee, and me. He didn't waste time. "Elena, we've always known your value. You've held our account together through 2 CMOs and 3 rebrands. I've got a position open, VP of Client Strategy. It's yours if you want it." I blinked, stunned. The title was a leap. The pay, double what I'd earned at Silverline. The trust, Immediate. But you know this will make waves, I said slowly. They'll assume I poached you. Liam chuckled. Let them assume. You didn't chase this. We've been watching the work you do. That's all that matters. I accepted on the spot. Walking out of Crestview's building that afternoon, sunlight bounced off the mirrored glass like a signal flare. I wasn't just employed again. I had leapt forward. 2 days later, my Silverline email was reactivated. Briefly, a calendar invite popped up from Margot Delaney, a board member I had met only once at a leadership summit. Confused, I accepted. We met at a rooftop restaurant. Margot wore sharp navy and a polite smile. Kira made a mistake, she said without preamble. We weren't informed. There was no board review, no protocol. You were a critical asset. She pushed a folder toward me. We want you back, director level, back pay for this quarter, and a 30% salary increase. I stared at her. 6 years I had waited to be seen. And now, when I had moved on, they suddenly noticed. I appreciate it, I said gently, but I've accepted another offer. Margot's smile thinned. Silverline has resources you helped shape. You'd be returning to your own legacy. I stood. That legacy is already walking out the door with me, and I'm not turning back. Outside, I exhaled slowly. There would be fallout. Whispers, calls, damage control. But none of that mattered now. I had chosen myself, and it felt better than any title ever had. The morning I started at Crestview, I woke up with a different kind of energy, steady, electric, and anchored. My wardrobe still had remnants of Silverline's strict dress code, but I pulled out a sharp navy suit and added a burnt orange scarf, a detail of color, a mark of change. Crestview's office was vibrant, open, and collaborative, the antithesis of the hushed, glassy corridors at Silverline. I stepped into my new role, like slipping into a suit tailored for me, but long withheld. Liam introduced me to my team, a mix of hungry strategists and calm account veterans. This is Elena Ross, he said. She's the reason most of you have ever heard of Silverline. Laughter, warm and respectful, followed. The ice cracked, and I felt welcome in a way I hadn't in years. My first project was both poetic and dangerous. Crestview was preparing to shift several major accounts from Silverline to internal management. I would oversee the transition. The very clients I'd once helped secure for Silverline were now being ushered out of their reach by me. I hesitated for a second. Was this vindictive? Was I burning a bridge? No, I was building a new one, just in the opposite direction. The calls started within the week. The first was from Jacob Worth, Silverline's COO. Elena, we've heard about the transition. Can we talk? I kept my tone even. I believe everything's moving through the proper channels. There's still time to negotiate, he pressed. You know our systems, our clients. We don't want this to get messy. Messy? They had thrown me out like a bag of trash. And now that I held leverage, they wanted civility. Silverline made its position clear the day they revoked my badge. I replied, I'm simply doing my new job. Then came Kira. I spotted her name on my phone screen during lunch. I stared at it, let it ring once, twice, and then answered. Elena, she said quickly, I didn't expect this. I thought we had an understanding. No, Kira, you thought you had control. There was a pause. I regret how things ended. No, I said, you regret that I landed somewhere stronger. That night, Liam sent me a simple message. They're spiraling. You're doing exactly what you should. I stared at the city lights outside my window, the skyline stretching far beyond the limits I once accepted. The truth settled in. I hadn't lost a job. I had outgrown it. And now, every move I made was no longer reactive. It was deliberate, chosen, mine. Just 2 weeks into my role at Crestview, the corporate tension thickened. I was in the middle of leading a strategic planning session when I received an unexpected email from Margot Delaney, a board member at Silverline. The subject line was simple: lunch. The message brief: I'd appreciate your time. Off the record. I stared at the screen, blinking. Margot was known for her precision and power. She wasn't someone who reached out lightly. I replied with a neutral, available Thursday at noon, and that was that. We met at a quiet rooftop cafe overlooking the harbor. Margot arrived in a storm gray suit, her eyes sharp behind designer frames. She didn't waste time. What happened with your departure was not authorized by the board, she said, and frankly, it's become a headache. I kept my expression calm, though my pulse quickened. Kira made a unilateral decision. No warning to HR. No documented cause. And then Crestview, the account movement. I sip my coffee slowly. Seems like a lot to ignore until now. She nodded. That's why I'm here. The board would like to formally offer you reinstatement. Vice President of Client Strategy, a 2-level jump, full back pay, and a retention bonus. I leaned back. I'm flattered, but unnecessary. Elena, this isn't just about optics, Margot insisted. It's about performance. We failed to protect one of our best. Let's make it right. I took a breath, then spoke clearly. You're not wrong, but you're too late. I've already signed with Crestview, and more than that, I'm thriving here. I no longer have to ask for my worth. I live it. Margot tilted her head. If you ever reconsider. I won't, I interrupted. I appreciate your honesty, but I've moved on, and now so has your biggest client. She blinked slowly. The weight of those words sat between us like a sealed verdict. After she left, I returned to my office and looked out the window. That moment wasn't about revenge. It was about peace. For years I had begged, quietly worked overtime, and smiled through being sidelined. That lunch confirmed what I already knew. When a company finally sees your worth only after you're gone, it's not respect, it's regret. Back at Crestview, the atmosphere was electric. Our strategy was gaining momentum, clients were happy, and my team was inspired. Every meeting was a reminder that I had made the right choice, not just for my career, but for my dignity. I didn't walk away from Silverline. They pushed me, and I soared. The weeks that followed brought a quiet triumph I could never have predicted. As Crestview solidified its transition away from Silverline, I began to realize just how much my presence had meant to the clients I'd once managed. Liam Carter, our CEO, had always believed in organic relationships, not just contracts. And in every call, every update, I felt that belief being reaffirmed, not just in him, but in myself. We were deep into a presentation for a new global marketing initiative when my assistant nudged me, whispering that Silverline had just filed an official complaint with the Chamber of Commerce. The grounds? Client poaching. I smiled faintly. Desperate moves from a sinking ship. Liam didn't flinch. Let them push, he said. We're not stealing anything. They came to you because they trust you. That's not theft. That's loyalty earned. Still, part of me couldn't help but feel the shadow of old habits. The fear of being blamed, of being painted as the villain. But Crestview's legal team calmly assured me everything was above board. The clients had all submitted formal disengagement notices from Silverline long before signing with us. Everything was clean, clear, transparent. And yet, it wasn't the lawsuit that stayed with me. It was the calls. One by one, former colleagues from Silverline reached out. Not with apologies, not with explanations, but with envy, curiosity, admiration. Elena, one of the senior account executives, confessed, "We're all watching you. Honestly, we wish we had left with you. Another message read, you were the backbone of that place. We just didn't say it until now. I never responded, not out of pride, but because there was nothing left to say. Their silence back then had spoken volumes. And now, so did mine. In the midst of this quiet reckoning, Liam called me into his office. You've built something powerful here, he said, but I want to ask you something bigger. How would you feel about launching a global client success division? Leading it, building the playbook, your vision. I stared at him, stunned. That's massive. That's why I'm asking you. And in that moment, I realized I hadn't just landed a new job. I had reinvented my career. What began as a dismissal, cold, sudden, humiliating, had become a doorway. One I never would have walked through on my own. But once shoved, I didn't fall. I rose. And I kept rising. Because sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is being underestimated. The launch of the Global Client Success Division wasn't just another career step. It was a statement. I sat in the same boardrooms. I once entered with self-doubt, but now people waited to hear what I thought. I had a voice. I had authority. And not because someone handed it to me, but because I'd earned it through storms I was never meant to survive. On the morning of the department launch, I received a sleek envelope on my desk. No name, just the embossed logo of Silverline Strategies. I opened it slowly. Inside was a letter signed by Margot Delaney, the same board member who had once tried to reverse my firing. It was polite, even respectful. They were restructuring leadership, it said, and reevaluating their talent strategy. Then came the kicker, an open offer. They wanted me to return. As a partner, I almost laughed. I folded the letter in half and dropped it into the bin without a second thought. Not out of arrogance, out of clarity, because no matter how shiny the offer, it came from a place that had failed to see my worth when it mattered most. And I wouldn't reward that with my return. That evening, Crestview threw a small celebration for the department launch. Nothing flashy, just a rooftop, soft lights, and the quiet hum of accomplishment. Liam raised a toast and then turned to me. You didn't just bring clients here, he said. You brought a standard. You reminded us how powerful integrity can be. And honestly, you've changed the way we lead. My throat tightened, but I kept my smile steady because I knew that behind every success, behind every new chapter, was the fire of the one before, the betrayal, the silence, the moment I was escorted out like a criminal. I walked to the edge of the rooftop, the city lights stretching far beyond. Somewhere out there, Silverline was scrambling to rebuild what they let slip away. But I no longer cared, not because I'd forgotten, but because I'd grown beyond the need for their validation. My story wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about proving anyone wrong. It was about finally recognizing my own value and choosing to protect it. And that, I realized, was the real victory.